Welcome to episode 46 of the AMT podcast. Something slightly different today. I want to discuss the upcoming mega fight between Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk this Saturday. Boxing is one of my favorite sports. So at least for the big fights, I do want to share my thoughts and opinions on likely scenarios and give my take on what I feel looks like value in the betting markets. I think there's no better way for me to start doing this than to preview what will be the first undisputed heavyweight title fight in 25 years. Really the first of this generation. The last time was between Lennox Lewis and Evander Holyfield. So again, a chance for another Brit to make history twice in my lifetime. Now, back then I was way too young to understand or appreciate the magnitude of the fight. But still, even in the pre-social media age, the build-up was feverish. And we can't really say the same for this fight, which is a shame because it is such a historical bout. And I can't help but feel that that's in large part due to the fact that the fight is not happening in a boxing hotbed like the UK or the USA. But regardless, it doesn't take away from the fact that outside Fury versus AJ, this is the most exciting possible matchup in the heavyweight division. We have the two undisputed best heavyweights on the planet. There's no question about it. So from a meritocratic standpoint, this is a deserved fight to find out who is truly the number one. Now, the market's tilting slightly to Tyson Fury as the favorite. I can see his price has actually drifted in as of the last couple of days. And there's nothing more that I love than a close matchup. I tend to at least find value in one of the fighters. So by the end of this video, I'll give my take on where I think the value lies. So let's break down the key facets to find out who comes out on top. Size. Now, Tyson Fury is obviously the bigger man. But having said that, his build height of 6'9" is bullshit. Here's him stood next to David Price, who's billed at 6'8". Here's him next to Deontay Wilder, who's billed at 6'7". Here's Fury with Magic Johnson, who's billed at 6'9". So clearly he is not that tall. I'd say he's more closer to 6'7" or 6'6", which of course is still big. And I don't mean to split hairs here, but I think the truth and the facts do matter, especially so when the fans try to lean too much into the argument that Fury is way bigger than Alexander Usyk. Fury typically weighs in at around 270 pounds on fight night, and he has a reach of 85 inches. Usyk, on the other hand, is 6'3". Now, he's by no means short, but he is giving up 4 inches in height to Tyson Fury. And when you couple that with his 78-inch reach, that's 7 inches he's giving up in that department. And finally, there's the weight where Usyk comes into the ring around 220 pounds. So that's around a 50-pound difference. So there's no argument in that department. Usyk is shorter, he has a lesser reach, and he's lighter. So advantage, Tyson Fury. Power. Now, Tyson Fury has 24 knockouts out of his 34 wins, but only 4 of those were pure KOs where he rendered the fighter unable to continue and beat the 10 count. The rest of the knockouts were either stoppages or the fighters quit. So whilst he has a very good KO record on paper, Tyson Fury is not a fighter that we can consider as a big puncher. Yes, he hits hard. He's by no means a light puncher, but by his own admission, he likes to just touch his opponents. He doesn't have that Deontay Wilder type of KO power. You know, Deontay has that snap, that hard, fast, straight right hand, which he throws down the pipe. Deontay can literally, you'd be losing the whole fight. He just has to touch you once with that right hand and you go to sleep. Joshua has a more Klitschko style power where the knockouts come from the sheer brute force with which he throws. Fury, however, scores knockouts by overwhelming his opponents, by tiring them out, bamboozling them, and just the cumulative damage from landing several punches before they're stopped. Usyk, similarly, is not a big puncher either. Despite 14 KOs out of 21 wins, only 4 fighters have been unable to beat the 10 count. The majority of the KOs have come from stoppages, from the cumulative damage where either the ref or the doctor had to stop the fight. So whilst neither Fury or Usyk is a big puncher, Fury being the bigger man and the natural heavyweight gets the nod in that department, in my opinion. So the power advantage goes to Fury. Style. Boxing is so dynamic, and we often say that styles make fights. And the styles that these two fighters bring to the table is what makes it really hard to predict. Fury can be classed as an awkward fighter. What makes him so unique is that for a man so big, he has extraordinarily good footwork and lateral movement. It's really rare to see someone that tall moves so light. Compare him to other fighters of similar height and weight like Vladimir Klitschko or Anthony Joshua, who fight much more upright, they're much more stiffer and flat-footed, yet they still gas out more than Tyson Fury. Now, part of that can be attributed to the more denser muscle mass they both carry. Muscles need more oxygen, so you have lactic acid buildup. And whilst Tyson Fury doesn't look as physically impressive, he doesn't gas out. He's very fluid and he moves around well right until the end of the fight. He has, however, looked more flat-footed as of late. He looks like he tries to sit down more on his punches. But some critics suspect that he's probably lost half a step and he's lost his stamina. Hence why he trades more now, but you guys can make of that what you will. I do also believe Tyson Fury is a little bit overrated from a technical standpoint. I think he has a bit of a flimsy jab. He doesn't have that snap, that pop behind his punches. He more or less slaps you around. He doesn't really open angles to land punches because he's so tall. He usually has the vantage point. All the angles are open to him. I believe he has more of a clumsy, awkward style of fighting. And because he's so tall and rangy, he's just hard to get close to. And when fighters do get close, he makes it ugly. He's good at clinching. He's good at using his head. He's good at putting his weight on you and just tiring you out and just winning by any means necessary. He's got that dog in him, and I think that's really where his advantage lies. I remember when he fought Steve Cunningham, who said post-fight that it was like fighting two people. And if we go back to the Klitschko fight, Klitschko is the more sound fighter fundamentally, but Fury completely threw him off by switching to southpaw, clinching, punching off the clinch, and basically just out-hustling him for 12 rounds. Tyson Fury fights are ugly. They're not aesthetically pleasing, but they're dramatic. There's knockdowns, there's constant shifts back and forth in momentum. There's not a lot of clean work. Alexander Usyk, on the other hand, is a very different type of fighter. Technically, he's as good as it gets. He has the best footwork, lateral movement, head movement, and ring generalship in the entire cruiserweight and heavyweight division, in my opinion. He's never been dropped as a professional. And I don't have the CompuBox punch stats on hand, but I would not be surprised if he has the best ratio punch for punches landed and punches taken. Usyk reminds me very much of his fellow Ukrainian compatriot in Vasily Lomachenko, another fighter who likes to open up angles and uses superior footwork to land cleanly and consistently and just beat opponents down into submission. When Usyk knocked out Tony Bellew and Daniel Dubois, on paper, yes, he stopped both fighters, but it wasn't just the final punch that did the damage. It was the accumulation of damage inflicted in previous rounds, coupled with the fact that he just absolutely knackered both guys out by forcing them to move. Usyk also has a very efficient jab. Now, the jab has many variants. He doesn't have a piston-like jab where he looks to hurt you with it. It's more of a pawing jab where he uses it to establish range and rhythm and help dictate the pace of the fight. He uses it to feel out his opponents, to gauge space and timing it takes to get to his opponent's chin, and then tease and trick opponents into throwing and wasting energy before striking them with counters. It reminds me very much of Guillermo Rigondeaux, the Cuban bantamweight phenom, who also uses a pawing jab to time, counter, and outsmart bigger fighters. Usyk has a style, in my opinion, that's proven it can hold up to the heavyweight division against bigger fighters, and he's used it to devastating effect so far. The slips, the feints, the jabs, the counter punches. Usyk is the more technically sound fighter in this matchup. Now, the ultimate measure of how good a style is how effectively it's used. Fury and Usyk are both extremely effective. They're both undefeated. So we'll have to get to the nitty-gritty here. And if we do that, we can't ignore the fact that Fury has been dropped 7 times in his career. Once by an unknown Canadian fighter, twice by Steve Cunningham, who is of similar height and build to Alexander Usyk. He's a former cruiserweight. He then got dropped 4 times against Wilder in 2 fights. And in his last outing, he got dropped by Ngannou on his boxing debut and narrowly avoided what would have been probably the biggest upset in heavyweight boxing history. Usyk has never been dropped as an amateur or professional. So ultimately, with regards to style and effectiveness, Usyk gets the nod, in my opinion. Heart and chin. Now, neither fighter has lost or been knocked out. Fury has, however, been dropped 7 times, as already mentioned. Now, whilst Usyk has never been dropped, he has been hurt to the body. And whilst he's been on the receiving end of offensive onslaughts from the likes of Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois, we cannot recall an occasion where he's been in serious trouble. Fury, however, has been in trouble, and his heart has been tested, like when he rose off the canvas like The Undertaker in the Deontay Wilder fight the first time round. That, in my opinion, was one of the most iconic moments in heavyweight boxing history. He got hit flush with a left hand and a right hand. And to rise off the canvas in the 12th round when you're already at the bottom of your gas tank is testament to how big of a heart Tyson Fury has. Not to mention the fact that he beat Klitschko when he was the B-side in the negotiations in Klitschko's backyard in Germany. So whilst Usyk, through no fault of his own, has never really had to have his heart tested the same way Tyson Fury has, I think we can agree that Tyson Fury has the bigger heart, but Usyk has the better chin. Resume. Tyson Fury has 34 wins, 24 knockouts, and 1 draw. Now, in my eyes, he's got 35 wins. The draw against Wilder was a phony judgment. I think Fury clearly won that fight, and many agree. But regardless, whilst the record is impressive on paper, if we scratch a little bit below the surface, it's not all that it seems. Because out of all of his opponents, he's only ever fought 2 world champions. When he fought Klitschko, it was a stinker. There's no debate about that. It's difficult and probably dishonest to say he outboxed Klitschko. Instead, he just wore him out. He out-hustled him. A win is a win, no question. But I do want to make a point about the manner of the win, because this plays into my point earlier about Fury being more of a winner and a grinder rather than an outright technical boxer. And as for the Deontay Wilder trilogy, the gulf was clear from the start. Deontay Wilder is nowhere near Tyson Fury's level. He's a club-level fighter at best. He has no footwork, ring generalship, or even fundamental punching technique. But what he lacks in ability, he makes up for with his athleticism, his otherworldly knockout strength, and he's got the heart of a lion. And for someone who can't really box, he did incredibly well to compete at the level he did for so long before getting brutally exposed by Tyson Fury. So I do believe the magnitude of Tyson Fury's wins over Wilder were amplified by the fact that he was coming off a 3-year bender of drugs and alcohol and battling mental health issues. To even get back in the ring is, of course, an unbelievable achievement, let alone fight at world level. But look, I know hindsight's 20/20, but the truth is Fury was always another level to Wilder. I don't think beating up Deontay Wilder is an as spectacular achievement as beating an Anthony Joshua or an Alexander Usyk. And if we look at Fury's resume since, it's been a steady decline. He fought Derek Chisora for a 3rd time. Now, Chisora has no business at European level, never mind world level. He then fought Dillian Whyte, and then the biggest asterisk came in his last outing against Francis Ngannou, an MMA fighter who's never had a boxing bout, took Fury into deep waters, knocked him down, and arguably won the fight. So the poor resume as of late, the poor performance on his last outing, and the fact that none of these fighters are southpaws, one has to question how prepared Fury really is to face the most formidable southpaw in Alexander Usyk. Now let's look at Usyk's record. It's quite literally perfect. He's won everything available to him at the highest level at every stage of his career. As an amateur, from the European Championships to the World Championships to the Olympic Games, he captured the gold medal. As a cruiserweight, he won every single belt to become the first undisputed champion in the cruiserweight division since Evander Holyfield. And what's even more impressive is that he won every single belt in his opponent's backyard, much like Fury did, by the way, to his credit. So that's incredibly impressive by both fighters. But since moving up to heavyweight, he's beaten Anthony Joshua for the unified belts in his backyard, not just once, but twice. And this, in my opinion, is a more impressive scalp than Deontay Wilder. And I would put it on par with Fury's win over Klitschko, both of whom were the big underdogs at the time. So yes, whilst the bulk of Usyk's record currently comes from the cruiserweight division, judging by the caliber of the competition and the fact that Usyk has faced and beaten 7 world champions compared to Fury's 2, Usyk has the stronger resume in my opinion. Keys to victory and likely scenarios. Okay, so now we've covered the key facets on both fighters. Let's talk about each fighter's strengths and weaknesses and how they can be exploited by one another. Usyk, as we've explained, is the technician. He's well adjusted to fighting bigger men, and he's dispatched all of them rather comfortably. From Joe Joyce to Daniel Dubois to Anthony Joshua, he's always used his pawing jab to establish range, take advantage of space in the ring, stay off the ropes, hit opponents with clean counters and left hands, circling, moving, getting out of danger, and using feints to set up shots. Usyk is going to have to be in tip-top shape for this fight. He's going to have to move, and move. He's capable of fighting on the back foot. He's also capable of backing up bigger men, as he did against Joshua and Dubois and Joyce. He's going to have to look to establish his jab very early on, as quickly as possible. Use his footwork to move around and open up Fury, land combinations, keep the action off the ropes, and keep it in the center of the ring as much as possible. As for Fury, he's going to have to rely on his size and bully Usyk as much as he can. He's going to have to smother him, get him on the ropes, lean on him, impose his larger weight, and his larger frame on him, force Usyk to push him off, clinch him, rub his head in his face, and do everything that he can that the referee will let him get away with to squeeze and tire out Usyk and just take away his legs. One of the biggest mistakes Anthony Joshua made was trying to box with Alexander Usyk. Trying to go punch for punch with the best technical fighter in the heavyweight division was suicide from the start. Had Joshua relied on his natural size and weight advantage, made the fight rugged, and used his devastating combination punching, the fight could have at least been more interesting. But unfortunately for the likes of Joshua and Daniel Dubois, they don't have that same nasty, mean streak that Tyson Fury has. So whatever Tyson Fury lacks in knockout power, he more than makes up for with his elite ring generalship. He knows how to win ugly by any means necessary. Making the fight as ugly as possible is key to Tyson Fury's chances of winning, and he's proven he can do that time and time again. He's a master at disrupting his opponent's rhythm and forcing fighters to fight his fight. He's happy to stink out the fight just to win. He's fighting in Saudi, not in England, so he doesn't have to worry about pleasing the crowd, similar to when he fought Klitschko in Germany. But the big question is he capable of doing to Usyk what he did to Klitschko and Wilder? Because we have to remember that Usyk is the smartest and most formidable fighter that Fury's facing. Unlike Klitschko, he's not at the tail end of his career, and unlike Wilder, he does have good ring generalship and technical ability. So it's not going to be as easy for Fury to impose his will as we're accustomed to seeing in previous fights. As far as weaknesses go, every fighter has a chink in their armor. As pointed out earlier, Usyk is questionable to the body. We've seen him wince and milk the allotted 5-minute recovery time by the referee when he got that questionable low blow from Daniel Dubois. So I've no doubt that Tyson Fury is going to look to test that midsection as soon as he can. I don't believe either fighter is completely going to have it their own way. Both fighters are well aware of each other's strengths and weaknesses, and they're just too experienced to fall into each other's traps. This fight is going to be more of a tug of war between styles and who can assert their dominance early on. A point I also want to add, by the way, that not many people are speaking about is Fury's penchant for the unexpected. When he fought Klitschko, he came out as a southpaw in the early rounds, which completely threw Klitschko into disarray. Don't be surprised if he does the same thing in this fight. When he fought Deontay Wilder in the rematch, he ran right at him and fought on the offensive, and he took away Wilder's best weapon, his right hand, imposed his will on him, became the aggressor, and knocked him out. I think Fury coming out on the offensive and backing up Usyk will be a massive key to winning this fight. Tipping the scales early and establishing dominance and not letting Usyk settle into a rhythm is going to be key. Whilst we can credit Fury for always stepping up in the big fights, we can't overlook the fact that he coasts in fights against lesser opponents where he's supposed to win, like the Otto Wallin fight or the Francis Ngannou fight. Usyk, on the other hand, is always in tip-top shape. He lives the life, and it reflects in the consistency of his performances. So with all that being said, I am leaning towards Alexander Usyk. I think the consistency, the elite technical ability, and the fact that he's fighting in his prime is going to be the difference. They say a good big fighter beats a good little fighter. Now, whilst that saying is usually true, I don't think it applies that much in this instance. Usyk is not that little, and he's not just good, he's exceptional. And whilst I believe he is in the fight of his life, he has performed at an elite level consistently over a sustained period of time. He's more skilled than Fury, and I believe that step up in skill will be enough to offset Fury's superior physicality, heavyweight power, and ruggedness. Now, whilst nobody has dropped Usyk, he does get hit. But even at heavyweight, he's taken punches from big punchers like Anthony Joshua. And for a supposedly small man, nobody's dropped him still. Nobody's outboxed him either. I just don't see enough evidence to suggest that Fury can outbox or knock out Alexander Usyk. And I think to that extent, the market agrees. If we go to the method of victory market on Betfair, Usyk to win by decision is the shortest priced outcome, even though Tyson Fury is the favorite in the match odds. So how does that even make sense? That's a great potential, by the way, for a potential arbitrage. And as for the fight odds, I do think Usyk is value at 2.3. The early rounds are going to be key. It's going to tell us who's going to impose their will. Will Usyk be able to settle into a rhythm? Or is Fury going to go on the offensive, corner Usyk, and take away his best weapons? If the former happens, I do expect the odds to flip and Usyk to shorten up to around 1.5 at some stage, but that's contingent on what happens early on. And if he does shorten up, you can be sure that I'm going to cash out. Unless it's a shutout, there's no real chance of me leaving this up to the judges, especially when we know that the financier of this fight, Turki Al-Sheikh, has a vested interest in making AJ against Fury. Boxing is the most bent sport. Dubious judging and refereeing continue to plague the sport. So as long as the right man wins, as long as the judges actually watch the fight and the referee lets the fighters fight their fight, I have no qualms about the outcome. May the best man win. High stakes fights like this are so hard to predict, especially with so much on the line. There is that added layer of pressure. So the unexpected can always happen. But if a gun is being held to my head and I'm forced to pick, I'm rocking with Alexander Usyk for this fight. The evidence, in my opinion, tips in his favor. In fact, I'm going to go one step further and be even bolder and say that I think people are going to be surprised with how comfortably Usyk handles Fury. Big statement, I know, but look, we'll see what happens. I am sticking my neck on the line, but that's the risk I'm taking. But hopefully you're now armed with the facts to make a more informed decision, trade or bet responsibly, and just enjoy watching this piece of history being served up by the two baddest men in hand-to-hand combat on the planet. Comment below, let me know what you think. Share, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon.